The horse and buggy clip-clopping down a rural Pennsylvania road, the simple wooden farmhouse surrounded by fields, the plain clothing, the beards, the bonnets. You've seen the postcards. You've watched the reality shows. You think you know who the Amish are. But here's the thing. Almost everything you believe about this community is either completely wrong or only tells half the story. Because behind those picturesque farms and simple living cliches is something far more complex. A community where smartphones are hidden in barns, where 8th grade dropouts run businesses worth millions, where a disturbing pattern of abuse gets handled with 6 weeks of silence instead of prison time, and where, despite all of that, they've somehow become one of the fastest growing populations in the entire Western world. By the end of this video, you're going to see the Amish completely differently. And I don't just mean you'll learn a few surprising facts. I mean you'll understand why over 400,000 people choose to live this way and why that number is exploding while the rest of America can't stop scrolling. Let's start with the biggest myth of all. You've heard it a million times. The Amish reject technology. They live like it's the 1800s. No electricity, no phones, no modern anything. Yeah, that's not true. Kevin Kelly, the founding editor of Wired magazine, spent years studying Amish communities. He wrote that calling them anti-technology completely misses the point. What they actually do is something far more interesting. They're technology selectors. See, different Amish communities across Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana have different rules. Over 40 different affiliations, actually, ranging from the ultra-strict Swartz and Truber Amish to the beachy Amish who straight up drive cars. The strictest groups won't even use buttons on their clothes. The more progressive ones have refrigerators. But here's where it gets fascinating. Most Amish communities make a key distinction that changes everything. There's a difference between owning technology and using it. Take phones. Many Amish won't have a phone inside their home because they believe it would disrupt family life. Fair enough, but they'll build a phone shanty at the end of the driveway, a little shed with a phone inside for business calls. It's not in the house, so technically it doesn't count. And nowadays, cell phones have become common for Amish business owners. One Lancaster County survey found that many Amish entrepreneurs carry smartphones. They just don't bring them to church. The electricity thing is similar. Most old-order Amish won't connect to the public power grid because that would create dependence on the outside world. But they'll use 12-volt batteries, diesel generators, solar panels, even compressed air systems to power their equipment. There's an entire industry of modified tools and appliances designed specifically for Amish buyers. You can literally buy an Amish computer, which is basically a word processor that can't access the internet. Why does any of this matter? Because understanding this changes the whole picture. The Amish aren't anti-progress, they're pro-intentionality. Every new technology gets evaluated by church leadership. The question isn't, is this useful? The question is, will this strengthen or weaken our community? Sometimes they get it wrong, sometimes they get it right, but they're actually thinking about it, which is more than most of us can say. Now let's talk about money, because the myth here is even more ridiculous. Some people seem to think the Amish live completely outside the financial system. No taxes, no banks, just cash hidden in mattresses. Come on, the Amish absolutely pay taxes. Federal income tax, state income tax, property tax, sales tax, capital gains tax. The only thing they're exempt from is Social Security and Medicare, and that's because they don't receive those benefits. It's not a loophole, it's a trade-off. And banks? Not only do the Amish use banks, they have their own bank. The Bank of Bird in Hand in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, was founded specifically to serve Amish and Mennonite customers. By 2020, it had over $532 million in assets. They offer checking accounts, savings accounts, business loans, and yes, debit cards. Many Amish business owners use debit cards regularly. The bank even offers something called horse and buggy loans for customers who need financing for their transportation. I'm not making that up. But here's the real shocker. The image of the Amish as simple farmers is almost entirely outdated. Just one generation ago, about 90% of Amish families made their living from farming. Today, that number has completely flipped. Around 90% now work off the farm. They run construction companies, furniture shops, machine shops, bakeries, sawmills. Donald Crable, one of the leading scholars on Amish communities at Elizabethtown College, calls it a mini-industrial revolution happening inside these communities. They've shifted from an agricultural economy to an entrepreneurial one in about 30 years. And they're really, really good at it. We'll come back to just how successful these businesses are. But first, we need to talk about healthcare, because this myth might actually be costing lives. Another common belief: the Amish don't use modern medicine. They rely on folk remedies and prayer. This is dangerous misinformation. The Amish absolutely use hospitals. They see doctors, they get surgery, they take medications. They even have specialized medical facilities designed specifically for their communities. The Clinic for Special Children in Strasburg, Pennsylvania, is a world-renowned medical center that treats genetic conditions prevalent in Amish populations. The University of Maryland runs an Amish research clinic with over 6,000 enrolled participants. These aren't folk medicine huts. These are cutting-edge medical facilities. Now, it's true that many Amish prefer to start with natural remedies before seeing a doctor, and they tend to avoid preventive care like regular checkups. But when something serious happens, they go to the hospital. What is different is how they pay for it. The Amish don't use commercial health insurance because they believe the community should take care of its own. Instead, they have mutual aid systems. When someone gets sick or injured, the community pools money to cover the bills. A study published in the Journal of Community Health found that 81% of Amish belong to some form of medical mutual aid program. The average monthly contribution? About $125 per individual. Compare that to the average American who pays over $400 a month for health insurance. And here's the remarkable part. Over 90% of Amish surveyed said they were confident their community would help cover a major medical expense. How many of us can say that about our insurance company? But enough about the good stuff, because we need to have an uncomfortable conversation about what happens when a closed community handles problems internally. In January of 2020, Cosmopolitan magazine and Type Investigations published a year-long investigation into sexual abuse within Amish communities. What they found was deeply disturbing. Across 7 states and over 2 decades, they documented 52 cases of sexual assault and rape within Amish communities, and those were just the cases they could verify. Researchers believe the actual number is far higher because so many incidents go unreported. The pattern they found was consistent and troubling. When abuse was reported to church leadership, elders often discouraged victims from going to the police. The preference was to handle things internally through church discipline. And what does that discipline look like? In many cases, the punishment for sexual assault was 6 weeks of shunning, 6 weeks of being avoided by the community. Then the perpetrator would confess publicly, and the community was expected to forgive. One case documented by investigators involved a 14-year-old girl named Lizzie Hirschberger from Michigan. She reported being raped 25 times by Chris Stutzman, a married deacon in her community. When she finally came forward, she was initially viewed not as a victim, but as a consenting partner. Stutzman eventually pleaded guilty to criminal sexual conduct. His sentence? 45 days in jail. In response to these revelations, Lancaster County formed the Plain Communities Task Force in August of 2020. This specialized unit works to build trust with Amish communities while ensuring that crimes actually get reported to authorities. But change is slow. The very structure that makes Amish communities strong, their insularity, their reliance on internal justice, their distrust of outsiders, also makes it incredibly difficult to address systemic abuse. And abuse isn't the only dark secret. Let's talk about shunning, or as it's called in Pennsylvania Dutch, meedung. When a baptized member of the Amish church violates the ordnung, the unwritten rules that govern community life, they can be placed under the ban. This means formal social avoidance. Other community members cannot eat at the same table with them. They cannot do business with them. They cannot even accept something handed directly from their hand. For minor infractions, shunning might last a few weeks until the person confesses and repents. For major violations, like leaving the faith or marrying outside the community, it can last a lifetime. Kipling Williams, a psychology professor at Purdue University who has studied ostracism for decades, found that social exclusion causes real physiological harm. Depression, stomach ulcers, weakened immune systems, anxiety disorders. In extreme cases, psychosis. A medical article in PMC described the practice as solitary confinement from friends and family. Imagine being cut off from everyone you've ever known, everyone who shares your language, your worldview, your entire understanding of life, and being told you brought it on yourself. The severity varies by community. Some are more lenient. Others maintain strict bans for decades. But the threat of shunning hangs over every member who might question the rules. And there's more, because when you have closed communities with limited oversight, other problems emerge too. Pennsylvania and Ohio have been dealing with Amish puppy mills for years. The Companion Animal Protection Society has been investigating since 2003. In 2008, 2 Amish men made national news when they shot 80 dogs rather than pay for veterinary care the dogs needed. In 2013, 16 dogs were simply set free to be eaten by predators. Animal welfare organizations have pushed for stricter regulations, but enforcement remains difficult in communities that distrust outside authority. Then there's financial crime. In 2020, the SEC charged Philip Reel, a member of the Plain community, with orchestrating a $60 million fraud scheme that specifically targeted Amish and Mennonite investors. Reel knew his victims wouldn't use the internet to verify his claims. He exploited that trust. And in 1998, something even more shocking came to light. 2 old-order Amish men in Lancaster County were convicted of buying and distributing cocaine and methamphetamine obtained from the Pagans motorcycle gang. Over $1 million worth of drugs had passed through their hands. The case shattered the image of the crime-free Amish community. Then there's one of the strangest cases in Amish history, the Bergholtz beard-cutting attacks. In 2011, members of a breakaway Amish community in Bergholtz, Ohio, attacked mainstream Amish families by forcibly cutting off men's beards and women's hair. In Amish culture, this is deeply violating. Beards are a sign of married manhood. Cutting someone's hair is an act of humiliation with religious significance. The attacks were orchestrated by Bishop Samuel Mullet, who directed his followers to target families who had left his community or disagreed with his leadership. 16 people were eventually convicted of 87 federal felonies. This was the first case to apply the Matthew Shepard Hate Crimes Act to violence within a religious community. But perhaps the darkest reality is what happens to those who try to leave. Imagine you're 18 years old. You've decided you don't want to live Amish anymore. You want out. What do you have? An 8th grade education. No high school diploma. No college. You probably don't have a driver's license. You might not have a social security number. You have almost no experience with the outside world, no understanding of how things work out there. And if you leave after baptism, which typically happens in your late teens or early 20s, you will be shunned. Your parents will not be able to eat with you. Your siblings will have to pretend you don't exist. You will lose every single relationship you've ever had. This is the impossible choice. Memoirs from people who made this choice are devastating to read. Misty Griffin wrote Tears of the Silenced about escaping an abusive Amish household. Emma Gingerich wrote Runaway Amish Girl about leaving her community in Missouri. Tora Bontrager founded the Amish Heritage Foundation to advocate for education and help those who want to leave. Organizations like Mission to Amish People in Ohio and Spring Haven Counseling, where 40% of clients come from Amish or Plain backgrounds, exist specifically to help people navigate this transition. But despite everything I've just told you, here's the twist that nobody expects. Almost no one leaves. The retention rate for Amish communities is at an all-time high. 85 to 90% of Amish youth who reach adulthood choose to get baptized and stay. And the population? It's exploding. According to the Young Center for Anabaptist Studies at Elizabethtown College, there are now 410,955 Amish people in the United States as of 2025. That's a 131% increase since 2000. Let me put that in perspective. The Amish population is growing at a rate of 2.5% to 3.5% annually. That's comparable to Niger, which has one of the highest population growth rates in the world. They're not growing through conversion. Less than 1% of Amish are converts. This is almost entirely natural growth. The average Amish family has 5 or more children, and almost all of those children stay. The Amish now live in 32 states and 3 Canadian provinces, with 684 distinct settlements. They're expanding into Maine, Montana, Colorado, Wyoming, and New Mexico. Areas that had zero Amish presence a generation ago now have thriving communities. At current growth rates, the Amish population will hit 500,000 before 2030, 1 million by the early 2060. So, how does a community with all these documented problems keep growing so fast? Part of the answer is business. Remember how I said 90% of Amish families no longer farm? Here's what they're doing instead. The Amish have a business survival rate of 95% over 5 years. The national average? About 50%. Their failure rate is between 2 and 4%. That's almost unheard of. There are between 9,000 and 10,000 Amish business owners across the country. In Lancaster County, 15% of Amish businesses generate over $100,000 in annual sales. 7% generate over $500,000. Ohio is now the #1 producer of hardwood furniture in the United States, and that's largely driven by Amish craftsmen. Holmes County alone has over 429 furniture firms. The total economic impact of Ohio's wood furniture industry is $4.6 billion annually. Donald Craybill identifies 5 types of capital that explain Amish business success. First, apprenticeship learning from childhood. Second, a culture of quality and frugality. Third, dense social networks that provide labor, referrals, and support. Fourth, religious humility that keeps ego in check. And fifth, the Amish brand, a reputation for honesty and craftsmanship that customers trust. When you buy something from an Amish business, you're betting that these people value their community reputation more than a quick profit, and historically, that bet pays off. But there's something even more remarkable than their economic success, something that's attracted attention from medical researchers around the world. In 2016, the New England Journal of Medicine published a study comparing Amish children to Hutterite children. Both groups are Anabaptist, both have similar genetics and diets, but the Hutterites use industrial farming methods while the Amish still use traditional practices. The results were striking. Amish children had asthma rates 4 times lower than Hutterites. Allergic sensitization was 6 times lower. The difference? Exposure to barn microbes. Amish kids growing up around animals and barn dust developed more robust immune systems. Ohio State University research found that Amish cancer rates are 60% of the state average and 56% of the national average. Tobacco-related cancers? 37% of Ohio's rate. And then there's the SERPINE1 gene. In 2017, researchers at Northwestern University studied an extended Amish family in Indiana carrying a rare genetic mutation. People with this mutation had 10% longer telomeres, 30% lower fasting insulin, and complete protection from diabetes. The kicker? They lived, on average, 10% longer than their relatives without the mutation. A drug based on this discovery, TM5614, is now in Phase 2 clinical trials. Holmes County, Ohio, where about half the population is Amish, is consistently ranked as one of the healthiest counties in America. This despite being one of the least insured populations in the country. Obesity rates among the Amish hover around 4%. The national average is over 36%. Suicide rates are about half the national average. Something about this lifestyle, whether it's the physical labor, the community support, the lack of processed food, or just lower stress, is producing measurable health benefits. So, where does this leave us? The Amish are not what the postcards suggest. They're not frozen in time. They're not naive simpletons rejecting the modern world. And they're definitely not a perfect utopia free from crime and abuse. They're a community undergoing massive transformation. 1 generation ago, they were farmers. Now they're entrepreneurs. Smartphones are spreading among their youth despite official disapproval. New settlements are popping up in states that never had Amish presence before. They have real problems. Documented abuse that gets swept under the rug. Shunning practices that cause genuine psychological harm. Puppy mills, fraud, and even drug trafficking. A system that makes leaving nearly impossible. But they also have something that most of America has lost. Community, mutual support, the confidence that if you get sick, your neighbors will help pay for it. A 95% business survival rate built on trust and reputation. Children who stay not because they have nowhere else to go, but because they actually want to be there. The Amish population is growing, while churches across America empty out. Their businesses thrive, while big corporations face trust crises. Their health outcomes beat the national average, while we spend more on healthcare than any nation in history. Maybe they're doing something wrong. Maybe they're doing something right. Probably both. But one thing is certain. They are not what you thought they were. If you found this as fascinating as I did, you're going to want to see the video on screen about other hidden communities that will completely change your perspective. And hit subscribe. I cover stories like this every week, digging into the stuff nobody talks about. I'll see you in the next one.